All right, the name of the show is What's Hot, and I'll tell you what's hot is coming in low. Buyers coming in low in their offers on sellers' properties. The question is it working? Stay tuned.
You better get fired up.
You better get fired up, because I tell you what, man, if this is working, if buyers are able to come in low on properties and they're getting the properties, for you, the buyer, that's a great thing, right? If you're a seller, I think the opposite would also be true. If we can look at data and see that, hey, maybe people are submitting those offers, I can tell you they are, but they're not really getting accepted. Well, then it's a whole different story. And I'll tell you too, before we get in, I have not looked at this data. This is data I have not looked specifically at. I am going to guess where I'm at, but I know I'm a biased realtor. I'm a biased person. But I just think it'll be interesting to see what my guess is in accordance with what truly is happening. But I'm going to call let's think about this right now. The median price point here in Port St. Lucie is low 400s. It's probably like 415, 420, somewhere around there. And on that price point, 20,000 low, let's say a 380 offer on a $400,000 home. That's low. It's probably not going to be accepted, but it's not crazy. Like, that's very common. That's not abnormal, right? The thing is buyers don't know what normal is. They don't know if this is normal or is this normal. And one of the reasons that I'm doing this is I noticed with one of my buyers, they thought low was coming in at 400 grand on a 500 grand, coming in at 450 on a 550. And I was like, guys, that's not low. That's unrealistic. That's what investors will do. And those investors need to send 300 to 500 of those types of offers just to get in conversation with someone, not even necessarily getting it under contract. But again, that's my biased opinion. Let's see what reality is. So is 30,000 low on a 400 too low? Again, I don't think it's going to happen, but I see it often. I don't think it's so much that you're going to offend the seller. You're going to offend some sellers, but not a lot of them. But I would say 40 grand low is likely not going to happen. If you're an investor, it's one thing, but if you're shopping for your house, my response back to you, if you wanted to come in at 360 on a 400, assuming that there's comps to support $400,000, because you got to remember too, maybe that property is only worth 360. Well, if they're asking 400, you come in at 360, you paid full market value for it. It may be 40 grand low, but that's low on a ridiculously high asking price, right? So what I would tell people, buyers who are coming in that low, is, listen, you've got to realize that the odds of you getting your offer accepted are very low. So if you want a sweet deal, you might have to make 10, 15, 20 of those offers. And the one who accepts it isn't going to be the beautiful house, because the beautiful house is attractive and beautiful. It's going to get all kinds of buyers' interest. The 15th, 16th, 17th house that you're going to attract is going to be the ugly house that needs a new roof, has minor mold in one of the closets. It's got a stucco crack that you could fit a penny into. Ugh, is that a problem or not? Right? And it smells like cat. That's the house you're going to be able to get for a sweet deal. Is that the house most people want? No, they want the beautiful house at a sweet deal. But I have to somewhere draw the line so we can do some data seeking here. So I'm going to say 10%. 10% on a property is what I would consider a pretty big low ball. 5%, pretty normal. 10%, that's a pretty extreme low ball. So let's come in here. I'm going to share a screen, and we're going to see how many of the accepted offers in the last, we'll say 90 days, have accepted an offer at that price. So we're coming in, I'm going to come in right here, and we're going to punch in Port St. Lucie. And we're going to look at solds in the last roughly 90 days. So it's 9/15. We'll go back to 6/15, 2025. And I'm just going to look at single family homes. We're not going to look at condos, townhouses, any of that stuff. You might see some different numbers there, but we're just looking at single family homes. That's the majority of people. That's it. That's all we're looking at. So let me grab a pen here. You can see right up here, we've got 1,168 homes that have sold in that time, single family homes in the last roughly 90 days. Okay. Now I can come to list, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to, where is it? Where is it? Right here. List price compared to sales price. Okay. And I want to make sure, let me come over here. So this one says 163. Let's come in and take a look at it. So they were asking 380, dropped it to 195. That doesn't even make sense. And it sold for 317. That's a goofy sucker. Let's come look at this one. I think there was some sort of error there. 325 dropped to 299, sold for 2.25. Okay, so these are selling way under. Okay. I show you that because I want you to see that when it says 133, that doesn't mean they sold for more. It means it sold for less. It's list price, right? You're asking 400 grand divided by sales price, which let's say you get 360. So we want to see something here. I got to look up what that would be. 400 divided by 360. So we're talking about 111%. All right. How many were there? Out of 1,163, the line is right here. This one. There were 12. That's not even 1%. Less than 1%. Oh, I said I was going to make a guess and I didn't. I don't think I would have said 1%. I would have said 2 or 3%. Less than 1% of homes are selling at a 10% or more discount. Less than 1%. Okay, what about a 5% discount? So that would be $400,000 divided by 380. That's 1.0526, blah, blah, blah. We'll just say 105. How many are getting at least a 5% discount? Right here, this guy. I can see it's 69 out of 1168. 69 divided by 1168. That is 5.9. Let's just call it 6%. 6% of homes that have sold in the last 90 days are selling for 5% under ask price or more, and less than 1% are selling for 90% or less. Okay? That's pretty wild. So now let's come in and let's see how many are selling for full price. It's going to take a while to get down here because once you get into these numbers, we're going to get a lot. So you'll see a lot of 102s, a lot of 101s. That's because a lot of people will work with you a little bit, but they're not going to work with you that much. So here is 100% or more. It's all but 237. So 236. 1168 minus 236 divided by 68. 79.8% are selling at 100% or more. That doesn't surprise me. Now, that's not the average. That's not the median. That is just telling you the percentage. Okay. So most homes are selling for asking. Now, there are a couple things that I want to remind you of because it's going to skew this a little bit. Number one, you've got to remember that there are a ton of homes that are canceling, right? They would have never sold at the price that they were at. They would have sold for much less. They're expiring. So they had a 6-month contract and it just never sold. And part of that is because they're overpriced. Part of that is because their home was worth $400,000. Now, maybe because of the market, it's worth $385,000, $380,000. So they're listed at $410,000, hoping for $400,000, and they're not getting offers. 6 months goes by, their contract expires, they're done. They're off the market. And a lot of them aren't coming back. Or they'll call maybe 3-4 months in, and they'll say, hey, listing agent, I've had enough. I can see where this is going. Let's just pull it off the market. I don't want to sell anymore. So when you think you've got a strong chance, not only are your odds very slim, but that's of those that actually sold. When you add to it all those that just said, no, I'm not doing it, and they canceled or expired, that number gets even bigger. It gets even bigger, right? Remember too that right now, and I kind of alluded to this already, just because you get something for 10, 15, 20% off doesn't make it a good deal. Okay. Let's just say my house is worth 500 grand, but I listed at 600 grand and you get 80 grand off and pay 520. Is that a good deal? It may feel like it. My wife may think so. Shopping at Target, that's how they get you. But no, that's not a good deal. You still paid 20 grand more than the property's worth. My house is worth 500. You paid 520. Sure, it looks good compared to my ridiculous price tag of 600. But if you're coming in, I mean, I've had people before that the home is 50 grand overpriced. They want to come in 40 grand low. And I'm like, whoa, are you okay paying 10 grand over? But then on a home that's appropriately priced, they want to come in 30 grand under. And I'm like, whoa, not that you can't do it, but just remember your odds are very low because they know, they can feel, they can sense from all the traffic, all the interest, all the offers. They can sense that they don't need to go that low. I hear that a lot too lately is, oh, it's an extreme buyer's market. They've got to realize this. So they're going to have to drop their price. They don't have to realize anything. I can tell you in 2008, which this market is nothing. This is a very neutral market in a lot of senses. In some senses, it is very buyer centric. In some, it's seller centric. In Port St. Lucie, you go look at 3 to 350, seller centric. But I can tell you in 2008, those homes took forever to sell. And people just didn't say, hey, you know what? I'm going to take $100,000 bloodbath on this. Some did. And those are the ones you read about in the news. Those are the ones that at happy hour or bowling or your dart league, they were talking about. They're not talking about all of the offers they put in low that didn't get accepted. And I remember it was like this. Here's the buyer, here's the seller. You get the buyer to come up, you get the seller to come down, but there was still a huge gap. So you would have, I remember having a lot of listings and I thought, man, this would be impressive, except only 1 or 2 are selling a month because you can't get buyers to come up high enough to reach where the sellers will come when they go low enough. You can't get sellers to go any lower. You can't get buyers so you just weren't seeing sales. There were sales, but it was so small, dramatically smaller than we had seen in 06, 05, 04, 03. And I'm not seeing that right now, right? Maybe a $600,000 home will sell for 580, 570, 560. But for everyone that sells for 560, there's probably 70, 80, 90 that are selling for full price or more, or maybe 5, 10 grand under, right? So I'm going to give you my non-statistically backed opinion on where you should come in on homes right now. This is just one guy's opinion. I think that number one, it has to align with your motivation. If you're the type of buyer that comes to me and says, Joe, I've got to be closed in the next 45 days for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. And it's a have to, it has to happen. And I have to have 4 bedrooms and I have to have new flooring and I have to have a roof that's 5 years old or newer. And it's got to be metal and I have to have a pool and it's got to be priced between 575, or I should say up to 575. And if I look on the MLS and I say, hey, we got 6 homes fit all that criteria. Can you bend on the bedrooms? Can you bend on the age of the roof? Can you bend on the fact that it's got to be metal, pool, whatever? Can you bend on? Nope, can't bend. Okay, if that's your case, one of those 6 must be your house. And they always say, he who doesn't need the deal has the leverage. Well, you need the deal. You need something like you said in 45 days. So I would say, listen, you've got a little bit less leverage. It's my job not to let the seller know that and put together a great deal and get you a great house at a great price. But you don't want to fail on these 6. And you're not going to like all 6. You're going to like 1, 2, maybe 3. And some of these are going to be 10, 20, 30, 50 grand overpriced. Some of them are going to be priced right where they need to be. So to try to put an offer in based on the asking price, in my opinion, is nuts. You should be putting together an offer based on sold comparable homes. Because again, If you got 3 homes, they're all 575. One's worth 575, one's worth 550, one's worth 5.25. You might like the one at 5.25 the most because it's got the flooring you want or whatever. It's got the 4th bedroom and the other ones have 3 plus an office and you really want that 4th bedroom, whatever it is. So are you telling me you're going to come in at 575 on a 5.25? I wouldn't. I would look up what comps sold for 5.25. Okay, now ask your buyer's agent with the offer of 5.25. Please present it as not a full price, but a full value offer and show them the comps and ask them, hey, can you beat up on our comps? Is there something we're missing that we're not seeing? Because this is what we're seeing, and this is bringing us to 5.25. Now you've got a little bit better, still not great, but a little bit better chance of getting your offer accepted. Rarely do I see people do that. But you've got to remember, even if that home's worth 5.25 and they're asking 575, they just might be so delusional or not motivated, right? They don't need to sell right now, that they're not going to drop. You've got to remember that. So now if I'm going to buy a home, maybe you want that one because it checks that one extra box. But value-wise, if you're trying to make an intelligent financial decision, if nobody's bending, you'd rather have the home worth 575 at 575. I also hear a lot, Joe, the house has been on for 73 days, 106 days. They've got to be motivated. Let's come in low. That's not at all what that means. It could mean that, but there's people who've been on for 2 days, and I know they'll take a lowball offer because they're motivated. And there's people that have been on for 300 days, and the reason they're on for 300 days is because they're not budging on price. They just don't want anything to do with it. That's why. It's not that they're desperate. It's the opposite. They're on so long because they're not desperate. They don't need to sell, and they're not going to negotiate with you. Now, have I seen people at 300 days that are negotiable and desperate? Yes. Have I seen people at 2 days that don't want to budge? Of course. But don't look at the days on market and think you know what's going on, because you don't. That doesn't mean you can't submit something, but set yourself up for success. That's what I always tell my buyer clients. If you lost this one and we had to go to plan B, would it be that upsetting, or would you be okay with that? If you say, no, I'd be okay with that. Awesome. Let's negotiate. Let's see what we can do here, right? Let's look at the days on market. Let me ask a couple questions of the listing agent. Let's look at the history of the listing. Let's do a little bit of research here, and we can come in with a lower offer. Because if you lose, it's not as impactful to you. However, if you tell me, Joe, there's a huge gap between number 1 and 2, well, then I'm going to say, don't come in and try to negotiate the heck out of this one. I'm not saying don't negotiate at all, but if you try to negotiate like really lowballing and you offend them so much, a lot of sellers will say, forget it, full price or nothing. And they would have taken 10 low. They would have taken 15 grand low. Now they're not going to do anything for you, and they might not budge a lot on inspection. In fact, they might not even take your full price offer. That doesn't happen often, but it does happen. People get offended. They get emotional. So you want to create an offer that positions you well and also aligns with your motivation. It takes into consideration your sentiments on plan B. If this house didn't work out because I'm trying to negotiate, would plan B okay? Would it be palatable? If the answer is yes, awesome, go negotiate. If the answer is no, be careful. I've seen it happen. I've seen newer agents push their buyers to negotiate. They lose out on the deal. The seller doesn't want to work with them. And then they come back saying, Joe, we got to put this together. Listen, what do we got to do? And now they're in a really tough leverage position because the seller knows that. They're going to come after them. So be careful before you do that. Guys, if you've got questions specifically about a home that you're looking at, you're not working with an agent, you want my opinion on the value, feel free to send me a DM. I'm happy to do a market analysis for you. You should be doing a market analysis. You do it when I sell your home, right? Everybody wants a market analysis when we sell your house, but for some reason, buyers don't ask for it. You should say, hey, agent, I'm paying you a lot of money. You're getting paid a lot of money. Let's ensure that I know what this property is worth before we put an offer in on it. Can you give me a market analysis? Show me what the property is worth. The answer should always be yes. And if it's not, well, if you're not working with an agent, reach out to me. I'll always tell you what it's worth. That way you're making an educated offer, and it's hopefully in alignment with your motivation. Guys, Guys, I appreciate you joining me. We're here every single Monday on What's Hot, where we talk about the hottest things in the Port St. Lucie real estate market. If there's something you'd like me to touch on in a future video, feel free to put it in a comment below or send it to me in a private DM. Enjoy the rest of your week, guys. Take care.